Okay, part two, fall initialization. So we're going to go through this process. It is only done once a year, so it is easy to forget what needs to be done. I do have your forms from last year if you don't remember what you did, but we're going to go through the whole process so you understand why we're doing fall initialization, what the purpose of it is, and then you can decide if you want to make any changes for this year or not. So again, I did send you two emails this morning. One came to you individually with a spreadsheet and a PDF about understanding the report. So that was, again, that was individual because that has individual student data. The second email that I sent was after the fact, but I sent several documents that I had printed for you guys that are here in person, because I kind of combined everything together in the order that I thought it should go. Those of you that are online, you should have that email, and you'll see the names of the documents that I open that you can open directly from that email as well. So the first thing that we are going to talk about is the purpose of fall initialization. So that is one of the documents that you do have. So why do we need to do this fall initialization? So the point is that we do SYI, school year initialization. We do that between January and February. So when we do that, we are getting the next school year ready. So we're copying things over, we're getting all the courses updated to the next year and so forth. With that process, when we complete it, we also promote and bulk enroll our students. So that's in January and February. So we know, we'll just say February. From February to the end of the school year, there's no way that you're going to have every student in your school have a perfect profile from February to May. Something is going to change, whether it's an address, whether it is a disadvantagement, whether it is a disability condition. So as those things are changing, you have two options. You have the option to change it in the current school year, and then try to remember to also change it in the future school year, or you change it in the current school year, and then we run the process called fall initialization. So for example, I have a student. So Johnny has been evaluated in April. Okay, so first time he's been evaluated, and they decide that he is going to go on an IEP. So it is still the current school year, 24-25. So we add that information. We add his initial ETR, which is going to populate his disability condition. We add his IEP and so forth. Well, that disability condition goes on his FD tab. So you're adding it in the current school year, but did you also go into the future school year and change it? If you did not, that is what the process of fall initialization does, is it will copy things. If things are not matching from 24-25 to 25-26, it's going to make sure that they match. Okay, so now it's going to take Johnny and look at Johnny and go, oh, well, in 25-26, he does not have a disability condition, but in April of 2025, we added that to his FD tab, and now he has a disability condition. We need to sync it up to the next school year. Okay. Now, some people decide not to run fall initialization because they are doing it in both places, and that is completely fine. You do not have to run through this process. Okay. So, that is something that you decide, but there are certain things that the fall init will allow you to sync or match up. So it's going to be information on the FS tab. the FD tab, and the FN tab. So those are the three tabs that it is looking for. And I broke it down as we go through this process. Okay. So I kind of just summarized all that, but one thing that I do want to point out is the October child count outcome. Okay, that is one thing that does not get updated during the fall init process. So that is something that you have to do yourself. Okay, so please be aware of that one. Okay. So the next thing that you will have to do. So as we have a packet that we go through, there's some things that I have to do to have things set up for fall initialization. Then there are things that you have to set up for fall initialization. So tasks 3 and 4 are how to actually exclude students from that fall initialization process. So task 3 is talking about an individual student. Okay. So if you're looking, and when I'm talking about this, whether I say the FS or FD or FN, it's all three of them. There's only one case that the FN record, it does not work in it. But everything else, it's all three of those. Okay. So this is the individual process. So if I am looking at a student, so if I get a student in context, so I'm in my future school year. Okay. I want to do some changes to him. So I'm looking at my student. I'm in his profile. Maybe I'm working on his FS tab. Okay. Maybe something has changed. Maybe he's now going to be late decision and now he's going to go to the JVS. Okay. So you want to make those changes. Okay. Or, you know, again, if we say this is Johnny, you know, Johnny's going to add that disability condition. Okay. So whatever it might be, if I do not want that student included in the fall initialization process, I'm going to check the box that says exclude the student. So that report that I gave you, and we'll talk about each of the sections of the report, this is where the students with warnings will show up and say, hey, Johnny was marked to exclude from the FD fall initialization process. Okay, so if this is unchecked, that student's going to get updated from 24-25. If I check it, that student will not be touched. Yes.
So if you say made changes in current school year and you also made that change in the next school year and it's not checked, what happens?
I think it's only going to update anything that's not matching.
Not
Yes. So, and I'm not sure where this is in the document. But I'll just tell you about it anyways. So any student, so, and I did Corey here as my example. So any student, so my FS tab, anything on here, okay, I only have one student standing. So if I do not want it to be updated, I would check exclude. If I have a situation where I have multiple students standings or attributes, in this case, I put a future date that he's changing to free and reduced. Okay. If there are multiple standings, it automatically excludes them. Okay. So this only works for FS and FD because FN does not have where you can have multiple attributes. Okay. So the FS and FD are, if there are multiples, it will automatically exclude. So in the case of Corey, I have regular, he was non-disadvantaged, and then he moved to a disadvantagement with reduced lunch. So in that case, he will automatically be ignored in fall initialization. So you don't have to check that. Okay. Okay. If this is checked, so if I exclude, so I want to exclude my FS standing because I changed maybe his EMIS situation and his percents of time, I want this excluded. It's going to exclude everything on this tab. So it's not just going to exclude what you've changed, it excludes everything. Okay. Now you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have so many kids. I'm not going to go through them one by one and check those boxes. That is where task 4 comes into play for you guys. So task 4 is being able to update the students in bulk to exclude them. Okay. So in this case, as long as I have an ad hoc membership, we had just talked about creating ad hoc memberships. So if you have an ad hoc membership for a specific group, you can update their and exclude them. Okay, so it looks a little bit different than normally going through our ad hoc process. So if I'm looking at my students, I would have my ad hoc group. Okay, I already have mine created. Here's my students. So we're going to look at Chris Bacon and we're going to look at Owen. So if I put Bacon in context, okay, so maybe I've made some changes here and I want to exclude him as well as Owen. Okay, because they're attending satellite classes. Okay, so I want to bulk change them to exclude them from the FS standing. So when I go in to my ad hoc updates, there is one that says bulk update fall initialization. In here, oops, sorry, have to be at the high school. I'm going to pick my ad hoc membership. So that was my new students. And I want to update them and I want to exclude them from the FS. Okay. So if I hit submit, if I go back to Bacon, I'm coming up with new people because some of these names are so silly. So I'm going to go back into his profile to his FS standing. And now he's excluded. And if I go to Owen, I don't know where Cash is. Maybe I didn't enroll him, but it would be the same. Yes. Mhm. I can put that in. But that's the only thing I can tell you is I can ask them to add that in, but yeah, it would kind of make sense to be in the same spot if you're making bulk updates, then yeah. Yeah. Yes, she already has it. So but she just has to go through it twice. She has to do the profile update, whatever she's making the change for, if it's, yeah, yeah. Rebecca, can you make a little note for me to do an enhancement for that? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Any questions with that process with what the 2 steps are? So you can do each student individually if you want, which was the task 3. And then you can do them by the bulk exclude, which is task 4. Okay. So then in your packet, Nope. So in your packet has appendix A, B, and C. So A is looking at everything from the FS tab. So what will get copied when fall initialization happens and what will not. So for example, like a withdrawal date, it's not going to update. Okay. To me, this was hard to figure out. Okay. Last year I was learning this and so forth. So there's a lot on here. I need the screens where all this information is. So what I included for you was my presentation. So you're going to see this. Okay. So my FS standing screen. So we know in our profile, if we go to FS standing, the items in red is what will be updated or copy over during fall initialization. So we know our start date's gonna go to July 1 of the current year. Okay, admission date's gonna carry over, reason, their EMIS situation, and so forth. So all of these things will update if something is different in 24-25 than it is in 25-26. Okay. And if you already made those changes manually in 25-26 for a specific student, then you would exclude them. To me, I understand this screen much better than this. Just me.
Better visual for sure.
So that's why I gave you guys kind of the printed packet. So then appendix B is the same thing with the FD. So I gave you the FD screen with what is included and then the FN. Those of you online. So the exclude from fall init has the appendices. So all three of them. And then if you open up the one that is called the quick reference, the fall init quick reference, that is going to have the screenshots. Okay. I also do have this on the student information homepage. And again, I'm still trying to, keep things organized here. I have things organized in categories now, but here's your fall initialization guide. So, and that is those screenshots. So if you ever need to refer to those after FYI or SYI or FYI, SYI, if you're like, oh, if I'm making updates, I forget what we do during fall init, it's here for you guys to reference during the school year. Okay. Okay. Now, next is understanding the report. So understanding the verification report. This is that spreadsheet that I sent you this morning. You guys do not have the ability to run that spreadsheet. It is done at the ITC level. Okay. So I ran it today. If there are students on there and you work on it and you want it ran again, just put in a ticket to say rerun the fall init verification report, and I'll send it the second copy to you. I can run it as many times as you need. We're verifying. I will not update until July 18th. Right? When's S close? 16th. So 17th. Sorry, the 17th. Okay. So on the 17th, I'll run fall init because I cannot do it until the S closes. So if you look at the understanding, it's going to go through each of the sections. So students with warnings. Okay. So if I pull up my spreadsheet, and I only have one student on there, but remember Coriander, remember I checked him to remove him, to exclude him. If I ran it again, we would have Chris Bacon on there. Okay. But remember, I excluded him. So now it says, hey, you know what? You have this student at the high school and he is excluded from the FD tab. Now, if you take that student and you exclude them from the FS, the FD, and the FN, it's going to list all three of them. Okay. So you'll see some other warnings. Okay, so for example, you might see that they have multiple FS standing or FD attributes. Okay, so that will also be listed as a warning. If any student who isn't newly enrolled for 25-26 and has a start date on their first FS or FD and it's not July 1st, it will be updated. Okay. Okay, so I do have a note here also with our warnings. So this also works with our students that are withdrawing. If you have withdrawn a student, but they were reported in your student cross-reference, you have to keep reporting them for the next school year because you reported them once. If you have not reported them, you can expunge them. Okay, so just remember that if you've already reported, so Johnny withdraws late and you already sent him in to your, when you did your student cross-reference, now you have to report him. If you haven't submitted your student cross-reference, you haven't submitted that information, you can expunge him. Okay. Okay, the next section is preschool students for review. So review all of these students. So think about it. So it's all based basically on your progression tracks. A lot of times with our progression tracks, our preschool kids are staying in preschool because sometimes they go for, 2 years. So fourth grade or 4-year-old, 5-year-old, or yeah, right. 4 or 5. Yeah. And then they move on to kindergarten. So you want to look at these students. Are they staying in preschool or are they moving on to kindergarten? Do you need to change their grade level to kindergarten versus them staying in preschool? Okay. So double check those. And if you don't have preschool students at your school, you might not have any students on this list. Some go directly through the ESC.
Shelley.
Yes.
Good morning.
I hear voices.
Good morning. It's Tracy.
Hi, Tracy.
Hello. So, hey, while you guys were working on the graduate part, I had almost 300 preschool kiddos for review. And I have no idea why, because they're all rolling from 24-25 to 25-26.
And are they staying preschool?
Yes.
So I think in that case, then you're leaving them as is because they are currently where they should be.
Right. But I've never had anybody like that under the review. And there's almost 300 kids listed. So I'm trying to figure out, did the girls, I can't find out what my common denominator is. Why they'd be showing up.
I found out at a couple of mine, I had changed the grade next year to preschool, but on that FN tab, it still said grade next year kindergarten. So I had a couple of those I had to update. So not sure, but then some other ones were just fine.
So here, the EMIS grade next year, they were
Yeah.
still saying kindergarten.
Yeah.
So double check that area. And I can look at last year's, Tracy, because I
Okay.
still have those files to see if I can see anything with the difference between the two.
Sweet. You know what? Thank you. I don't know who was talking about the FN attributes. I did not check that tab. So,
That was Fran.
hey, Fran, thank you much. I'll check that. Appreciate it.
Okay, keep me posted.
Thank you.
Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
I have some on my list that are assigned billing IRN is not the 6 asterisks, but it's because these were kids that have been approved for open enrollment from like Melrose to Keene.
Okay.
So will they be excluded or they're just kind of just letting me know?
These students should be analyzed further to determine if they need to have their assigned building IRN updated to the asterisk. Very few students should have an assigned building IRN that isn't asterisk. So if those are the cases, then you would ignore those students.
Okay, I'll verify they're all correct, but.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then, our last one, our last area, so we talked about our preschool students. Our last area is students being promoted but withdrew before the 6:30 date. Okay, so this is where I talked about if you've reported them or you can withdraw them and expunge them. So depending on how you reported them are different, so you need to go through those students. Make sure you haven't reported them. You can expunge the ones that have withdrawn. So, and you might not have anybody here, and that's okay. So some of your lists might be smaller, some of your lists might be a lot longer. So basically what you have to do is go through all of these and just verify. These are all warnings and saying, hey, this is what we see with your student. So your first section is your warnings. Okay, so that is something that, so I guess I was wrong in the case of Corey. He has more than one FD attribute. So that's why he is not being updated. Okay, and then if I reran this, Chris Bacon would show up as my student being excluded because I purposely checked the box to exclude from the FS standing. Okay. And then again, if you have any students that have withdrawn before that 6:30 dates and your preschool students. Sure. I think so. Hold on. I know there's a note here.
That we've already re-enrolled for next year.
Okay. Oh, wait, maybe that's on my tab, right? Okay, wait, here it is. Okay, if you withdrew him with the code of 81, manual manipulations will be required to get the student reported. The better option is to expunge the student and add the FX record for the student. If the student then re-enrolls in the district in the same school year, will ignore the FX record that has been reported and accept the incoming data in the data collector. But it's a different school year.
So like in 24-25, he withdrew, went to the Ribbon Academy, like to catch up his credits and then.
Withdrew from there.
He's gonna come back to us and go to prison. And same thing, I have a preschool student on my list that we withdrew preschool, but next year he's coming back to preschool. You know, so like we withdrew him in the
24-5 school year.
Like he withdrew like in November, but now they're sending it back next year. I think that section is looking more for kids that you need to whack.
Yeah, I think so. But were they
If I
listed
don't
on
say
this?
excluded, are they gonna whack them? You would need, I mean, if they're not coming back, you would need to whack them. But
Okay.
if
That's
they're-
what I-
That's what the list is for.
Yeah.
But you're saying, should you exclude them?
Right.
Because you've already made those changes in 25-26, that they're
Well,
coming
it's
back?
24, Right, it's 25-26, they're already re-enrolled for next year.
So he's like active in
25,
25, 26.
They're active in 25-26, but are they gonna look at what would happen in 24-25 and take them out of 25-26?
I don't think so, because your withdraw date does not carry over. That I do know for sure. That is a good question. Yeah, your withdrawal date does not carry over. I can get confirmation on that if you should exclude them or not. Cause I'm not 100% sure, but like I said, I do know the withdrawal date does not carry over. So it would then show them as with a withdrawal date. It would show them with an effective start date.
So if they withdrew, like, they left after January, after the naturalization. And they would have already been pushed over the 25 weeks that, so you need 125 so that you're not recording.
Yeah, so anybody, so when did you come for, with the snow days and stuff, it was crazy. So when did you come for SYI? Do you remember? Was it January or February? Okay, so anybody that has withdrawn since, we'll just say January 31st, from February 1st till Monday, if they've withdrawn, they're gonna be on that list for 25, 26 because you already promoted them and enrolled them in 25, 26 and expunged them. Yes. Good question. Yes, right. Kids never do that. Yes.
So I just need to be excluded if they had two FS standing strings in 24, 25. So our eighth graders might have one for the high school, one for the middle school. So the second screen would be excluded. But what other reasons would they be excluded? Yeah, those are high school.
So I have a option, and what mine are. Well, are doing the high school, because she was on last year for JPS.
Yes.
So she goes in and she knows to do that.
So any changes you make.
Right, so she's already coded those kids and she knows this is working on. And next year, it'll be clear.
Yeah, they look okay from 25 to 26.
Because she checks that box and she does that. To be excluded.
Okay. So Jill has a comment in the chat if my screen comes back on. If you changed your new JVS kids in the 25-26 school year using an ad hoc and did not use the 7/1 effective start date, a new date, they are going to be on your list. Yeah.
It checks the box. Yeah, two FS.
Well, they did in 24, 25. Some of them, not all.
But that report is looking for at 25, 26. What happened to all the Career Center students? Yeah. That is fine. Like I said, I don't run anything until July, so we have time.
Harder than you think. I didn't do that.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Okay. And again, you guys are gonna have time to work and look but what I want to do is also talk about the form. And if you guys know what you want, I already do have some filled out. You can put them up here. If you're not quite sure yet, you can always scan them and email them to me. So looking at the form, we have three options. Okay, so I can run fall initialization for your district with these options below. So we'll go over these options. You can run fall initialization just to see if there are any changes and it will sync those changes. So no options, leave everything as is unless there are kids that are unsynced. It's gonna make sure that that information is synced. And then your last option is do not run fall initialization at all for the district. Remember, this is a district thing. It's not per building. Okay? So if you are running fall initialization with options, okay, so your options here. And this is sometimes where I need help because I don't understand how preschool works, but anyways. So set the percent of time for kindergarten students, the equivalent max absence level of their student calendars. So from what I understand on this, so if they're coming from preschool, they might be, not at 100%. So if you want all your kindergarten set to 100%, that kindergarten calendar, that's what that is going to do. Okay, so depending on what your preschool is set at, and then when they're bumping up to kindergarten. Okay. And then this is the same for first grade if your kindergarten is not attending 100%. Okay, so I think, do any of our schools have half-day kindergarten still? Does anybody? I didn't think so. Okay. This is the most popular one. The EMIS disadvantagement. Okay, this also includes free and reduced. Okay, so it will reset the disadvantagement in 25, 26 to the asterisk, so nothing. Okay, and it will also set the free and reduced area back to none. So if you want that checked, if you start over every year and you get those forms in and you change them every year, you can have this reset to none. So everybody does not have a disadvantagement group. Everybody does not have free or reduced lunches. Okay, that seems to be the most popular. Okay, these next ones from here all the way down to here are your on your FD attributes. So these are just resetting. So again, depending on your students in your district and so forth, some of you might use some of these, some of you might not. All your limited English status will be reset to none, or no, sorry, I guess no. Your migrant statuses will be reset to N. Homeless status will be set to your asterisk. So non-applicable. I can't say that word fast, so I try to avoid saying it. And then the I can't say that word either. Unaccompanied youth status will be set back to none. So if this is something that you are redoing every year and you double check everyone and so forth, if you want everybody reset back to nothing, then you will have those checked. Okay.
I don't know why people set their disadvantage, because for the first 30 days of school.
Yeah.
They get
Kids are supposed to be so counted.
until they get their form in. I don't know, even when like we do our frontline training, they said that that's what majority of districts do. I don't know.
And that's the thing, that's what they go off of. The cafeteria level, that's what they.
So then how does that information get updated in pay schools? Manually entered then?
So does pay school?
No, they don't.
So they have to
That's why
look
we
at
don't reset
who
ours.
was-
We have to go back through and update any changes. So if we had a previous free and reduced student, at the end of that 30-day new calendar year, they have to manually then
Yeah.
remove them if they don't
turn in their application or qualify at that point. So,
Okay.
yeah, we keep everything the same. You don't. We couldn't get a, yeah, we don't go back to zero. Turn back to. So what do you do if it doesn't? They don't. Have to prepare your. I work with our March manager. Reference, like from high school, her direct cert list, all the things. And then those that don't turn them in, or anything.
Can you guys hear the online? Can you guys hear some of the questions, or do I need to be repeating everything?
Please repeat.
Yeah, I couldn't hear Shelley at all.
So we're talking about the differences that some people are resetting the disadvantagement, some people are not, because no matter what, that student has the first 30 days. If they were on free lunch, they still get the free lunch for the first 30 days. And then several districts are going through pay school, which pay school is the one that determines if they were free or reduced, because that's what the cafeteria uses. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a benefit to still
Yeah.
have them.
Yeah. Okay. Veronica.
What I did last year.
I do.
That's what I used to, but mine was that CEP, I almost need to get that disadvantagement out of there because I don't want that in there, because it's, you know, the 4 and the 6, and I was.
Yeah, then you might want it reset. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have yours
But I
reset
think I
this year.
did that anyways, I think I've.
Yeah,
always-
I'll look yours up.
Is that okay if we do that?
Yeah, I have everybody's.
Yeah, cause I can't.
Alright.
Thank you.
And yeah, anybody you guys, I brought them with me, so if you guys wanna see what you did last year, I have it. Then this last one, reset the preschool poverty level, from our training, when going through it, they said this is no longer, required to be reported to EMIS. So it is still there, it is still an option for reference purposes, probably for the next year or so, but it is not reported. Okay. So again, all of the documents were emailed to you, so you guys should have those. Those of you in here, you have the hard copies. Everyone, including the people online, you do need to get the form back to me at some point in time. I think I put in the email by July 10th. So that gives me a couple days to go through everything before I actually run the fall initialization update process. With whatever you have told me to. Okay? If you wanna stay and work and go through your reports, you can feel free to. I am gonna be here. If you need me to rerun it, I can rerun it today and send it to you. Or at a later time, if you're cleaning things up and you want me to rerun, just put in a ticket and I'll resend it to you. Okay? Questions?